Hey, it says we're live. I love this. So I have titled today Adventure of 100 Days, and this is day 4. So let me tell you the story of Adventure of 100 Days. And here's the deal. Now, there's just I live in Canada, in Edmonton, Alberta, which is north of Montana. And I say that not because I think you don't know, but because I didn't used to know. Like I lived in the US most of my life. And finally in 2000, I'd been to Vancouver a couple times and a couple of other places. But in 2003, about 22 years ago, I moved to Canada because I had some work up here and I didn't know where many cities were. And so, anyway, Edmonton is in Alberta. It's the capital. It's about halfway up Alberta, and the provinces in Canada are huge. And I know I say that just because I'm going to talk about the US for a minute. The US just had an election. There's all kinds of controversy surrounding the election and the president to be and who hates who and all the rest of that. We're not going to talk about that. Canada is also facing an election because our prime minister actually just stepped down and, lost favor. And there's probably going to be a vote of no confidence and kicked out. So that's the way politics goes. And I'm not going to talk about that. What I am going to talk about is when in the US, at least, and maybe in other places, when a president gets elected, and my wife and I are both dual national US citizens and Canadian citizens. I was born in San Francisco and raised in California in the Bay Area. Anyway, when the US president gets elected, people talk about what do they do in the first 100 days? What is their plan of action? And there's lots of noise about day one this and the last president, Biden, day one did a bunch of stuff. The thing is, what's going to happen in 100 days? And the idea is to measure the effectiveness or the actions or whether or not they keep their commitments or change them, that sort of thing, in that first 100 days. So in 2000, many years ago, 7, 8, 9 years ago, because there was an election then, I think it was in 2017, I thought of an adventure of 100 days. I actually started it way before the election in the summertime. And I did it for several 100 days worth. Then I quit doing it now for 5 or 6 years or 7 because of COVID and whatever. I decided with this new election in the US, I'm going to do an adventure of 100 days. Now, mine's not about a legislative agenda, obviously, since I don't create any legislation, but it's about a mission that I'm on. And every president or leader of a country, when they're elected, they get a mandate from the people. They're supposed to be, saying what they'll do, and people vote for them because of that. So I have a mission, and none of it's political. So we're done with politics. My mission is to reach 300 million people. Wow, 300 million people. That's like, wow, 80, 90% of the population of the US. Canada's some 40 million. As I looked for English-speaking countries, right? The official language of India is English, which I didn't know until not too long ago, a few years ago, because there's so many other languages. So anyway, adventure of 100 days. Here's my 100 days. My commitment this year, my year started October 14th. So January 14th, which is just in a few days, is coming to the end of my first quarter. And those days go by quick in weeks. So here's what I'm about. I'm going to reach 300 million people. Why would I care? And why would 300 million or any number care what the crap I have to say? Well, I'll tell you. I have a message. And here's the message for you. And it goes with the acronym WIPOS. And I don't know how to say that. WIPOS? 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 I don't know. WIPOS. I don't know. No, not WIPOS. Ooh, that's bad. WIPOS. WIPOS. All right, I'll go with WIPOS for now. But WIPOS stands for, each letter stands for something. And here's the message for you. WIPOS for you is this. W stands for worth or worthy. One of the things I see all the time, it just showed up on a call I was on this morning. I was talking to, it was a group call. There were about 13 people or 12 or something people on the call. And I was talking with some of them, and one person was clear that they felt less than, a little unworthy, and like they weren't doing very much, like they didn't matter very much. So here's the first part of the darn message. You are worthy. Your worth is infinite. Like, who can measure the life, the worth of a person? Like, we have wars going on where it's clear people couldn't care less. They send tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people to die for madness and greed. The worth of each individual person's infinite. That means you right here, right now. Now, you may not have done much with that, or you may have been raised or are now in circumstances where you don't get to, seems like you can't do a lot with that. Doesn't change what you're worth. You're worth infinity. Now, here's why that matters. If I believe that, I act differently, right? If I believe that, I don't act the same. If I believe I'm worthless, and I've lived that way for a long time, like I wasn't good enough, never measure up, and all the rest of that crap that we all sometimes feel, when I believed that, I acted like that. I did stupid things. I devalued myself. And I got in a lot of trouble besides. But here's the thing. If I know, and I have this internal certainty that I'm worth zillions, infinity, then I act different. I carry myself differently. Not arrogance, but pure value. Now, the Creator who made me and you, the Creator loves us. God loves us, period, all in, all the way, all the time. Certainly for me doesn't mean I get what I want, but it means that just that knowledge and certainty, again, changes how I show up. So the message that I'm sharing to 300 million people is this. I'll give you, this is going to be every day, so we'll do it in 5 pieces. But the acronym's WIPOS, and you're going to have to wait till tomorrow to find out what the next one is. I is worthy. You are worthy and you're worth infinite. Now, I want you to sit with that for a minute and see, this was really helpful for me, is what I'm doing today on this Friday, is it reflective of a person who has very high worth? Or is it reflective of me in a state of I'm worthless, I suck, I'm no good, or I'm not that big of a deal? It doesn't matter what I do. Because when I think of the worth that I have, I act differently than when I treat myself as not worth much. And it was interesting because in that call this morning, the way this particular individual was talking, it was clear they were judging themselves as not worth much. The energy was like that, the way they looked and so forth. And so my heart ached. I wanted them to know they were loved and worth infinity. Because as soon as you feel that, you look up, your energy goes up, your commitment goes up. Even if you stumble and fall and you can't do what you want to do, knowing that you're worth an infinite amount gives you the courage to get up and try again. So this is going to be a lot of parts because Adventure of 100 Days, I'm going to try to do this every day. And I say try, and I hate that word because sometimes things get in the way. This adventure started on Tuesday. And I didn't get to do day 2 or 3. Now, if you want to see episode 1, it's on latalkradio.com. I introduced this on my LA Talk Radio show, which is on the latalkradio.com site. And look at the shows and go to Your Ultimate Life and watch that one from last Tuesday, and you'll see this. And this is going to grow because I have it in my heart. It's laying on my heart and lifting me like a giant helium balloon. It's on me like a ton of bricks, not in a bad way, but in a beautiful way, is to spread this message of WIPOS. And the first piece is how much you're worth. Now ask yourself whether or not you believe that, and whether or not the way you talk to yourself and the way you allow others to treat you or talk to you, does it reflect someone who believes in all their heart, deep in their heart, that they are of high worth? Ooh, that was a hard question for me. Maybe it's simple for you. Maybe you've got that handled. I didn't. And it was a struggle for me, not anymore, but it was for many years. And it brought me to habits and places that weren't good. So let me give you this piece, and then we'll be done for today. I love you. Your worth is infinite. And I want you to stay tuned because this 100 days is going to document all the ways that I'm employing to reach 300 million people. My goal at the end of this 100 days is to have reached 40 million of those 100. Now, since I've only got a year and a quarter's gone, the math doesn't add up. But I expect it to go 40 and then 80, double it next quarter, and then the following quarter, 180. And 40 plus 80 is 120, and 180 is 300. So that's what I'm thinking, that it will build momentum. And I'm going to introduce you to the message. And there's more parts than just the message, because the message by itself doesn't do everything, it does something. If you believe you're worth a lot, that causes you to think of yourself differently, talk differently, interact differently, agree to different things, pursue different things. So your worth is infinite. That's the first piece. And you can follow along in the next days, adventure of 100 days. Now, my question is this: what is your message? If you have a message, are you sharing it? Can I help you share it? Will you let me? Get a hold of me if you want me to help you share your message, because I have a podcast with coming up on 1,000 episodes. We'll hit 1,000 later this year. And I have this LA Talk radio show where I introduced episode 1 of this, day 1. And I have lots of ways to help you get your message to millions. That's what I'm doing. And if you follow me, you can see how I do it. If you get a hold of me, you can let me help you do that. So you'll get the secrets rolled out as the days go by. Today is day 4, and the message starts with W. Your infinite worth. I love you. You're amazing. You're fabulous, and you can have anything you want if you're willing to go get it. I'll see you tomorrow for Adventure of 100 Days, Part 5.